guys. So let's open up our first email, or rather, our only email of the day. And this email comes from Tawny, who lives in Seattle. How you doing, Tawny? And Tawny writes, Mike, you're a big soundtrack and film score guy. That is correct. I am. So what are your top 10 favorite Halloween-themed movie soundtracks? Ooh. That is a great question, Tawny. Thank you so much. And yeah, for anyone who knows me, I have an insatiable love for film soundtracks. Yes, I mean, like Guardians of the Galaxy has probably one of the best soundtracks of this decade. But even more than like soundtracks or songs, I'm into film scores, you guys. I love me a good film score. And I believe the other day on the show I was talking about The Fugitive. The Fugitive was the first movie that I can recall like really being sucked into the music of the movie. Oh man, like just that boom 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 boom, you know, that, oh, so good. It's music adds so much to a film, and anytime you listen to it afterwards, it can only remind you of the good parts of the movie. And of course, like sometimes a great movie has terrible music, sometimes a terrible movie has great music, and we get all sorts of gradients in between. A great movie can have great music, Back to the Future, or a terrible movie can have terrible music, The New Mutants. Anyway, so as per the question from Tawny, tomorrow is Halloween. Today is Friday the 30th. Tomorrow is the 31st. Tomorrow's Halloween Day. So in the spirit of Halloween, yeah, let's kind of go through some of my favorite Halloween scores. Now I'm just gonna do a few honorable mentions. I've listed my top 10. They're in no particular order, but before we get to the top 10, I'm going to do a few honorable mentions. First of all, Stranger Things. Wow, what a great score. What a great score to a television show. Now, the reason that it's in my honorable mentions is because Stranger Things is not a movie. It's a television show. But the score that was put together by Kyle Dixon and Michael Stein it's glorious. It's fantastic. If you get a chance, go and check it out. If you haven't already, add it into your iTunes or Google playlist because it's fantastic. Next up on my honorable mentions, again, not a movie. It's more of an experience. That would be the soundtrack to Disney's Haunted Mansion. Every Halloween, I have to listen to this whole album on repeat. I love the music from the Haunted Mansion. It's one of my favorite rides of all time, period. It may be my favorite Disney ride. Of all the rides and all the attractions that Disney's put together, the Haunted Mansion just might actually be my favorite attraction at Disney World or Disneyland or any Disney property, period. And the music is just, mwah, oh, it's so good. It has that light, creepy feel and being voiced by Paul Frees. Oh, it's so good. I have one more honorable mention to mention, and that, again, not a movie, but it is the classic song Thriller by Michael Jackson. Now, of course, very famously, the music video was directed by John Landis of early 80s comedy fame. And actually, he directed An American Werewolf in Paris, and by some considered the greatest horror film of all time, or maybe their favorite horror film. He went on to direct the music video of Thriller for Michael Jackson. It's a brilliant music video, kind of a short movie, in fact. Josh, before I get into my top 10 film, oh man, where did you go? I just had you. There you go. There's Josh. What do you think of the honorable mentions that I have placed before the audience so far? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I love Stranger Things. I think the soundtrack is it's kind of spot on with what it's trying to achieve, which is sort of that retro, again, very sort of like 80s, 90s, 80s, 70s sort of horror, John Carpenter, Stephen King vibe. Um, which I really dig, and I think they really kind of nailed that sound, which is the synthesized sort of horror, minor dissonant chords, which I really love. Well played. And of course, I mean, I think Thriller is definitely considered one of the classic horror uh, songs slash musical videos of all time. I think it was the. I don't know if it's the most played music video, but I think it was. It's like it has so many accolades in that regard of like the most this and the
I
most
could
that.
see that. I could definitely see that being the case. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, but yeah, that's great. I think they're spot on.
Cool. Well, let's jump in. So Thriller, Stranger Things, Haunted Mansion, all being some of my favorite honorable mentions. Let's jump into my first film soundtrack, The Shining. And again, these next 10 are not going to be in any particular order. I love them all so much, kind of equally, but these are my favorites. On my phone, on my computer, I have my Halloween playlist, and these are all listed in, again, no particular order. I just love this feeling of eerie, creepy atmosphere that this particular music creates, and The Shining is absolutely no exception. It delivers. It's actually based on a classical piece of music. If you're not familiar with it, that dun 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 dun. The classical piece is done in bells. So when Stanley Kubrick, I can't remember who actually did the music for The Shining, but when Stanley Kubrick hired the composer to do it, they transferred that music from bells in a major chord to horns in a minor chord, and it makes all the difference in the world. Josh, I know this is one of your favorite movies of all time. What are your thoughts on the soundtrack for The Shining?
Oh yeah, The Shining is. I mean, Stanley Kubrick's notorious for having his hands into every part of his production, and I think music was no exception. I think he was very specific and selective about what he picked. The music was apparently by Wendy Carlos and Rachel
Oh, thanks for
Elkind.
looking that up.
Yeah. And but however, a lot of the pieces were hand chosen by Kubrick and are not. I believe I could be wrong about some of this, but are not original. They're pulled from different sources and different styles and different composers. Like you said, that one is a classical piece that was sort of altered and modified and
Sure.
modulated to fit the purpose. There's another great piece, and I can't remember the name of it, but by Stein, I believe is his last name, Stine or Stein, and it's sort of those. It's when Danny and Jack are like having a conversation in the hotel room, and it's that like those like sort of elongated strings that
Yes. Uh-huh. Yep. Mm-hmm.
classical piece, and it's again just perfectly chosen. That score is creepy, scary, and it's hard to put your finger on too.
Yeah.
You can't really be like, here's the theme to The Shining, other than other than the opening credits. What other music can you sort of go put my
Yep.
finger on it? Which is great that movie because it's not it's a very sort of like
It's just chilling. It has that chilling kind of feel to it, haunting even.
yeah. There was some pieces were very like rhythmic and mechanical, like the you know the when Jack goes a little crazy. And then other pieces were very sort of symphonic and like the opening
Mm-hmm.
score.
Yeah.
So it's weird dissonant style too, which is great. This you can't really pinpoint this is the kind of style it is, which I love too. And just
Oh,
it's
it's
brilliant.
fantastic. It's like I said, it's in my top 10. It's one of my favorites. Moving on to my next favorite film with the best Halloween inspired score is this film is in my top 5 favorite movies of all time. That is Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. The score, of course, very famously made by Bernard Herrmann. Bernard Herrmann worked very closely with Hitchcock in many of his films. In fact, Bernard Herrmann actually created the theme to Twilight Zone. So if you're familiar with the theme to Twilight Zone, that was Bernard Herrmann. Bernard Herrmann, very, very well known for his minor chords and that again that creepy atmosphere, that feeling of unsettling, of not being safe. Again, very famous that re 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 re. It's just strings on a violin making you feel unsafe. And Oh, I love the score so much. I love the movie. Josh, quick thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Bernard Herrmann is I you could do worse than to just go down a rabbit hole of Bernard Herrmann music. He has that signature style of the sort of repetitive melody that kind of goes on and like over and over again to sort of create that eeriness. The do 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 with Vertigo, the
Yeah.
do do with Twilight Zone, with Psycho. It's the bump 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 da da da.
Yeah. Uh huh.
A lot of phrases to the sort of like the tension building of it, and it's beautiful. His music is perfect and beautiful, and I think it's just it's you can't go
Perfect and
wrong.
beautiful. That's how I like it. My next movie that I have on the list is Creepshow. Like again, you talk about atmospheric music. This is it. Like this is it. I know that Creepshow and Tales from the Crypt, in terms of their musical stylings, are very, very similar, and I'm sure one has inspired the other, and then back and forth. Creepshow, of course, just got a reboot on the Shudder network streaming service on Shudder. They're doing a reboot of Creepshow, but the original Creepshow, the theme, the ending theme to Creepshow, just that dum dum dum. It's heavy, but it's light at the same time. Josh, I know you are very familiar with this theme. In fact, you have actually written your own version of Creepshow, or rather, your own theme in the style of Creepshow. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I just love it. I think it's such a just a nicely constructed, fun. It's a perfect again tonally. It fits perfectly with the movie because there's this sort of like comic bookiness about it that it doesn't take itself too seriously, but it's still really scary, which I love. And I think just the kind of style that it is with the pianos and the weird sort of tension and the even like the thunder and the lightning and stuff. It's all just so great. It's just really well constructed. And yeah, I kind of wanted to try my hand and see if I could create something in the same vein and the same style as that. And it was really fun to sort of try to pick apart the song and go, oh, here's this part and here's this piece, and you just see how nicely it's constructed and how fun it's constructed. And
And I think you hit the
again,
nail on the head. It's a fun theme, and it's a fun musical journey to add to the film.
yeah, and it's not something that people go, "What's the theme song to Creepshow?" and they're gonna hum it, but it's one that you go like when you listen to it, you go, "Yes, that it hits the nail on the head. It delivers on everything it needs to."
It's not something that you can hum, but when you hear it, it's instantaneously recognizable. You know immediately what it's from. It's great. My
Great.
next movie on the list is the score to The Sixth Sense. Now, The Sixth Sense came out in 1999. I think I was 16 years old when this movie was in theaters. I wanted to go for my birthday. I begged my parents to take me to the movies, and I couldn't even make it through the film. This was the first, it may be the only film I've ever walked out of. It may be the only movie I've ever walked out of. It scared me so bad. And the score by James Newton Howard 100% contributed to this factor. If it weren't for the score, it's just this this is the music that makes you feel dread inside of your heart. And I love it. It scares me to death. Even now, when I go back and I re-listen to it, and I listen, of course, every Halloween season, I always have to go back and re-listen to The Sixth Sense, but it terrifies me. How, Josh, on a scale of 1 to 10, how scary do you find the score to The Sixth Sense?
To be dead honest, I'm trying to like remember exactly. I remember specifically watching that movie and feeling like that feeling, and I feel like that the Sixth Sense is. I mean, it's sort of
So the score it does a lot of piano. It does like a lot of individual keys, like doom 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 doom. Like so there's like slight melody to it, but the thing that about the score that really creeped me out is it has these violin trills that happen unexpectedly. So it's not like in music is a standard musical fashion. It's when the monster jumps out and scares you, it's right. It scares you, but with these trills, it's that da-da-da, That's it. That's all it is. It's just a quick violin, da da da, and you like it comes out of nowhere, and now you're looking around the movie theater thinking like, what just happened? Did I miss something? Something ominous is here in the room with me, and I can't see it. And it's the music that makes you feel that feeling or puts that thought in your brain. That's what makes it really creepy to me.
That's a really good
Oof.
point. Like I like the score for soundtrack should serve the movie, right? And so to be able to do that properly, like it's not all about itself. It's more of just sort of serving that. So like you said, it didn't need to do a whole bunch with it. Like you said, with the trills were very effective to you,
Mm.
obviously. Just the little thing,
Mm-mm-mm.
but it needed a no more no less. And I just remember watching that movie, and certainly the score contributed to the dread of that for me too.
All right, guys. My fifth soundtrack that has brought so much happiness and joy to my life. This, I mean, you're seeing it on screen right now. It's the soundtrack to Halloween. John Carpenter, low on money, low on production budget. He didn't have the money to go out and hire himself a proper, musical composer, so he did it himself. He got himself a synthesizer and a piano, and he figured out a little bit of musical melody, and it has now come to become one of the most iconic horror themes of all time. Just that you have the sound of a heartbeat in the background, and the heartbeat is driving the music. It's so recognizable. Everybody knows it. Josh, this was the first song that you ever taught me how to play on the piano. I don't know if you realize that, but that is true.
Yeah, it's a fun song to. It's not too hard to learn on the
Mm-mm.
piano. You just the just a few keys and then just kind of like back and forth. But yeah, it's I mean that's the brilliant. Like I think some of the most genius and brilliant things are some of the most distilled and like simple things. And I think John Carpenter just had such a brilliant and simple score with this. But the beauty of it to me is this sort of relentlessness of it. It's just like you said, it just keeps going. It's just it doesn't stop, and that's kind of like Michael Myers of like he just keeps coming and he doesn't stop and he keeps following you, and it's like what a great sort of like I don't know, maybe that's I don't even know if that's what he intended, but I just feel like that's such a nice thing of that. It's just like you said, it's just it doesn't stop hitting, and it's just so good. And with the opening credits of just that, like the pumpkin and just the slow fade into it is just such a perfect dread builder. Like it's
Oh,
just
it really is. It really is.
it's it's like the most recognizable for a reason. And he went on to score other things too, all very good. Like I think he did The Fog. He did a whole bunch
The
of his other
Thing.
movies.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's another great song.
Josh, for my sixth movie, and again, in no particular order, Josh, this is one of your favorite horror movie properties of all time. I don't even need to tell you what it is, except for that. I'm going to let you introduce it. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Josh Hurley talking about this particular film soundtrack. Josh, are you there?
What I think.
What
Yes.
do you
So
think it
sorry.
is? Yeah, what do
I,
you think it is?
what do I think it is? Oh, sorry. Yeah, because I was like, I don't know what it is, but I think I'm assuming you're talking about Charles Bernstein's beautiful score to well, beautiful is again a weird word, but it's the classical music of it. Just the perfect score for Nightmare on
That
Elm
is
Street.
correct. A Nightmare on Elm Street. Josh, take us through Nightmare on Elm Street. What makes this such a great score?
I think this has all the elements of makes you sad. Yeah, this is a great score. It's just it's got all the elements of great horror. It's got the dissonant minor chords. It's got a very recognizable theme. I think Freddy's theme is very it's that bum 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 bum. Bum. It's just a great theme. Um, and then there's a real dark sort of like bass tone underneath of it, especially at the
It's
beginning.
interesting you say that.
The
I would
very
actually argue this is probably the darkest of all of the musical scores that I've listed in my top 10 favorites.
yeah yeah it's really dark. It's really dark. It's really heavy. There's some nice. It's got 80s some synth in it. Um, and it's just yeah it's great and it I mean you can kind of tell a score by how much they sort of reuse it like again with the Addams
Mm,
Family. It's like everybody knows this because it's so
yeah.
iconic. Same thing with They used this theme throughout all the movies, like all 7 movies. Not the remake, but
I
whatever.
feel like of all the other songs and all the other scores that we've talked about on the show today, and we still have a few more to go over and to talk about. Um, while yes, a lot of these fill you with dread and creepiness and atmosphere, I feel like the soundtrack or the score or the theme to Nightmare on Elm Street is the only one that feels evil. Like there's something in the
Yeah,
music that genuinely feels evil.
it's very evocative. It certainly is, and I think that's what like it's just this. I love it for Halloween for that reason because it's just so evocative of like, ugh, like
Yeah,
dread.
I agree.
And so Freddy's a bad dude, and in the first couple movies, he's a legit scary bad guy. After a while, he kind of got a little comical, and he got a little bit
Sure,
like,
yeah.
here's some puns thrown at you and stuff. But it really is a legit scary movie, and so I think the music just really hits at home. And like I said, it's really dark and scary and
And
creepy. And
speaking of
it's
dark
just
and scary and creepy, that leads right into our next soundtrack. That is for It Follows. This music was done by is it a band, Disaster Piece? I'm actually not familiar with Disaster Piece, but it was written by Disaster Piece. Again, it has that dark melody of bum ba da da dum wum bum ba da da dum wum. And again, like I'm not doing it justice. I'm just singing a few notes. But it's what I love about this soundtrack is yes, it was written in what 2015, 2014, something like that. Um, but it is very. Josh previously was talking about how evocative Nightmare on Elm Street is. This score is evocative of an old school 80s theme. It has that classical kind of 80s synth kind of evil dread vibe to it. It's wonderful music. It's great for creating atmosphere. Josh, like you were the one that introduced me to It Follows. I still haven't watched the movie because terrified, but the music is beautiful.
Yeah, it's great, right? And you're absolutely right. It's so evocative of the 80s. What I love, I think I remember reading an interview with the director where he said in the movie itself, it's hard to place what kind of world this is because there's a lot of weird things that sort of that don't belong. Like there's a weird shell phone in it that's kind of like, this doesn't really exist in the real world. So he kind of keeps you in this weird dream state. And this music kind of does that too. Um, I believe Disaster Piece is just a person. I believe it's just one person who
Okay.
creates all
Okay.
this on believe.
Like Moby.
But yeah, exactly. And there's a piece on it called Detroit on the soundtrack that I have a
Oh,
hard time listening to
that that
because it
track is really scary.
I have to be like in a well lit space to listen to the soundtrack sometimes because it really does creep me out. And it's just so good. It's just perfect. It's just that 80s ness.
Well,
It's
that
that
particular track
very
you're talking about, Detroit, I think part of the reason that particular song is so um particularly terrifying is because it overwhelms your senses, right? It has certain there's certain parts of the song or the track that become explosive to your ears and it disorients you a little bit, especially if you have headphones on. You I mean, it's a creepy feeling not to know your surroundings, and the specific notes that they use messes with your inner ear a little bit. So A, you tend to feel off balance ever so slightly, and B, it's so loud and so overwhelming. You begin to have lack of awareness of what's immediately around you. So having that sensory deprivation a little bit, it's terrifying to have that jump inside of you. And speaking of terrifying and jumping inside of you, this is not terrifying. However, it's something that I love so much. It is Harry Potter. Come on, you guys. John Williams, how can you not love the score to Harry Potter? That dun 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 dun. Is this scary? Is it creepy? No, not really. and especially in John Williams' third outing in the Harry Potter franchise, was it Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, is probably the darkest of all the scores, but it's fun. It's a fun Halloween kind of romp through music land. When Harry Potter came out, I loved the movie. I was blown away. I was totally brought into this universe, and I not just wanted more, I felt like I needed more. I needed more Harry Potter, and large in part of that was the music. Josh, I know you're not the biggest Harry Potter fan in the world, but you're definitely familiar with, obviously, John Williams and his score for Harry Potter. Quick thoughts.
I think of all the things I know about Harry Potter, I feel like the score is one that I instantly can go, yes, that's it. John Williams is, like you said, John Williams is, if he's attached to something, it instantly elevates it, no matter what it is. And it's magic. John Williams creates magic, magical music. His music is like, that's that aspect of Halloween where I feel it's like magic of like, you listen to something of his, it's just got that, it's embedded with that sparkly magic of whatever he's. It's true, and this is that dun 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 dun. It's just, it flows so nicely, and it feels wizardy. It feels magic.
It's whimsical. It's very whimsical.
Yeah, he just can't. I feel like he literally, even if he tried to do wrong, he couldn't. I don't know. He's just so good at what he does, and it's just, this is a perfect example of that.
Now, speaking of whimsical, in John Williams in the '80s, I would venture a guess there were three composers from the '80s that really made it big, really made it huge. Obviously, John Williams. Pardon me, excuse me. Obviously, John Williams. Second, I would say Alan Silvestri. Can you guess who my third choice is on this short list, and what movie I'm about to choose next? What do you think?
Okay, so Alan and John Williams for the '80s. We're talking, right?
80s moving into the 90s, yeah.
'90s. I want to say what's his name? Yes. It's got to be.
Danny Elfman. And which Danny Elfman scored film do you think is next on the list?
I think. Well, he has so many good. He's got Batman. He's got, of course, so many great ones. But I think for Halloween wise, I think it's got to be Beetlejuice.
Josh Hurley knocking it out of the park. Beetlejuice, a classic, iconic score. It's fun. It's lighthearted. Yes, it has all that fun from Danny Elfman's Oingo Boingo days. It's bombastic. I dare say this is the most bombastic of the scores that I have listed. That dun 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 bum 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 bum. It's just it is a ride. Like, this is a musical roller coaster. I love the movie. I love the music even more. It adds so much heart to the character of Beetlejuice. By the way, why is Beetlejuice? That question was never answered in the movie. Why is Beetlejuice? But he's there. But yeah, this music it's fun, it's exciting, it's entertaining, it's lighthearted, it's slightly creepy, but it's very atmospheric, and it's a lot of fun. We have one more movie to go, but before we move off to that, Josh, your thoughts on Beetlejuice?
Beetlejuice is great. I mean, you're right. It is. It's in your face. It's, again, the theme is sort of that Beetlejuice sort of like grotesque, sort of like arrogance of like, yeah, come on, like Showtime. It's Showtime. There was a story. I'll probably get it wrong, so look it up on the internet and it'll correct me. But I think they wanted something like, because Beetlejuice doesn't appear until like super late in the film, like a lot later than the film than they wanted. So Danny Elfman's, the theme of Beetlejuice is the theme of Beetlejuice. Like, the character's theme is the movie's theme, right? So I think they superimposed the theme song onto the title credits. They had something a little slower there, but they were like, we need to hit that theme because it takes forever to get to Beetlejuice. So the fact that theme is over that weird, like, slow rolling thing, it's that weird audio visual dissonance that's such a nice thing, and I'm so glad they did it that way.
It's just a lot. And to incorporate daylight come and me won't go home, like, to take such a happy, fun song and to incorporate it not just into the movie but into the theme of Beetlejuice. Like that's how the movie starts. It's this slowed. Have you ever heard the slowed down version of Jolene by Dolly Parton? You know, they slow it down by, I think it's like 1/8 of a second or something like that, and it adds this whole nuance to the song that was never originally intended. And by doing that same thing with I can see his face perfectly in my mind. Who originally sang Daylight Come and Me Won't Go Home? Oh, I can't think of his name. He's a Jamaican fella. I can't think of his name. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it was so brilliantly crafted. And you, ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to our last film, one of my favorite horror themes of all time. It is from the movie The Exorcist. Again, this is a movie I will never watch. I am terrified of this stuff. This subject matter scares the living crap out of me. So no, I will not be watching this movie anytime soon. Thank you very much. But the music is haunting, and it's like I knew the theme long before I ever knew that it was associated with this movie. So when I found out that it was associated with this movie, it just kind of gave me the chills, like, ugh. But again, it has this. The theme song to The Exorcist is called Tubular Bells. Tubular Bells. And it does have like that kind of chime bell sound in nature to it. It's haunting. It's not the scariest theme I've ever heard, but boy, oh boy, does this just add a lot of atmosphere and kind of dread. It's kind of, I dare say, gross. It kind of leaves you with some gross feelings. Josh, you've seen The Exorcist. I know you've never seen it?
Well, so here's my story too. Is that movie creeps me out too, to the point where I've only seen clips of it. I haven't sat through the whole movie, and I don't know if I will. Same thing with Hereditary. I can't. For some reason, that movie just makes me go, I don't know if I can see this, which is fine because I love horror movies, but it's
gross. Gross. No, thank you. But yeah, I love this theme. So this is my rundown. Let's just do it real quick. Recap. So again, my honorable mentions of Stranger Things, Disney's The Haunted Mansion, and Michael Jackson's Thriller, directed by John Landis. Moving into the movies, The Shining, Psycho, Creepshow, The Sixth Sense, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, It Follows, Harry Potter, Beetlejuice, and of course, The Exorcist. Josh, without taking up too much time, are there any movies that I left off this list? Anything that comes to mind that you're like, oh, this is one of my particular favorites?
That's a great point. I think you had a brilliant list. I think it's like there's so many good things. Again, and I think the thing is too with this list is you can go to that composer and look at their other stuff and go, yes, like this, their other stuff is just like, it can be evocative too. So I think it's a great list of like not only great scores themselves, but also great composers who make those kind of songs. I think one for me personally that's not on anyone's radar really is Mark Shaman's the score to The Addams Family and Addams Family Values. It's actually it's such a beautiful score. Like if you actually just listen to the soundtrack, it gets such a beautifully written score, and it's like it's dark, but it's like there's a lot of romance to it, but there's a lot of like depth to it, a lot of style and substance in terms of like I feel like he went back to the 1920s and 30s a little bit and 40s even to sort of get some of that. Like I don't know, I think it's a soundtrack that I bought as a kid that I actually listened to a lot because I just loved it. And I would sort of like create scenes in my head based on the music just because I thought it was such a cool score. So it's a weird, like underrated one that not a lot of people probably even know about or care about. But Mark Shaman's The Addams Family scores, I think, are just great. But I think the list is it's a great list of horror music. Also, the Wes Craven's New Nightmare is also a great score. It's not Charles Bernstein, but someone else. I think Robinson is his name.
I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, Wes Craven's New Nightmare also has a really good score that I used to listen to a lot when I bought for Halloween and stuff and listened to it. It's really well done too. Cool. But yeah, I think is the only thing I'd say is like kind of an obscure thing that I really love.
Well, the big question here for you guys is, what are your favorite horror movie songs or scores or movie themes? I'm very interested to know. If you can, look them up on YouTube and post the links down below. Of course, like I'll be posting links in the description of this video for all of the soundtrack, specifically individual score songs or pieces or tracks that speak to me for each of the films that I have listed. And I'm very curious to hear what your favorites are. So again, jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you like this video, click like. If you really like this video, click subscribe. And if you really, really like this video, click share. Because that is exactly what Scrooge McDuck would want you to do. DuckTales, woo!